Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Seasonal Tokens Podcast, where Polar interviews people so you can do more investing and less gambling.
My question for you, which is our special question on our podcast, is how do you think a person can actually do more investing rather than gambling in crypto?
Yeah, I would say have basically a list in front of you, have a criteria that you make that you look for in every project. Maybe it has a little score. You don't have to make it that complicated. Just have something in front of you that you can go through. For example, the white paper is thorough and it's professional. Check. Go to the next thing. The website has nice, clean branding, some very clear messaging. Check. The Telegram, I go there in the pinned posts. It's not messy. Everything's nice, cleanly organized. They're communicating very clearly. Check. The roadmap that's in the, let's say, in the Telegram chat of their upcoming marketing, it makes sense. And we feel like it could be valuable for the project moving forward. Check. These are, I would come up with your own criteria and I would build that out for you yourself and how you find investments. Then I would sort of backtest this as well. So I would say, all right, check this project out. I'm going to pretend that I invest in it. And now I'm going to see how that would have worked. And now you're kind of validating how your mind is kind of working. Okay. And along the way, you will dial in your own internal criteria and what you as an investor ultimately want to have. And then you'll also have a series of validations that you'll have gone through that validate, hey, was this an accurate prediction or was this bad? And remember, we risked nothing. We lost no money. It was a pretend investment. So now we're able to see over time, hey, if you have thrown in $100 on each of these that you thought were great, if let's say 75% would have worked out, then you have something. If 40% would have worked out, then you're gambling and you're going to be at a loss because the numbers aren't working in your favor. You're 40% every time. You follow the same criteria. This is the results you're going to get. So that's what I would do. And then I would now I'm looking at something with actual data and information through that criteria. And now when I look at a new project, all I do is open that criteria I have up and I make sure I don't miss something, right? I don't get wrapped up in all the crap that people might be trying to sell you and hype you up and all this other stuff they're telling you. I don't have to listen to it because I have the criteria that I always work off of. That's legitimate. Okay. And that's what I use. And that's what historically, if I pretend to invest $100 has actually worked. And so now this is what I work off of, irrespective of what everybody tells me in the chat. I don't pay any attention to it. I validate off of my criteria, not what they tell me. And that's what I would encourage people to do. That's what I have in my head. Basically, I go through, I'm like a computer. I would expect most people to have it in a list that you can open up and go through so you don't forget these details. But that's how I personally do it.
Yeah.
And I'm very cautious.
Yeah, and you should be, for sure. And the great thing about what you are suggesting, the list, is that if you go through many projects, I suppose in the end, this list will be part of you. And in the end, you will not have to check through the list. You haven't heard the part when I was saying my thoughts about your answer?
Yeah, I didn't hear that part.
Okay, sure. So what you're saying totally makes sense. But what I'm thinking is that if you have such a list and you go through many projects, in the end, this list will stick in your brain to the level that when you check a project in the future, you also have a gut feeling which project is good and which one is bad, right?
Correct. And it's the exact same thing. Like I said, I used to be a process improvement consultant, actually. It was about, making sure that the quality is always maintained. Okay. So how do you do that? With standard work. You make sure you standardize it all and you train people in the exact same methods. That way, everybody's doing things the same way and you have a predictable result. Okay. If everyone's doing it the same way, you would expect at some level of confidence, the result would be the same. So this is the exact same mindset I had when I was a project manager, and I would bring in very complex projects when I was a project manager in the printing industry. And I was able to run things about 3 times more efficient than most people. And my level of errors was very minimal because I had that list that I brought up in front of me. Even if it was kind of wrapped up in my head in those cases, I would check all the details off for the project. And then I would avoid all the painful problems later on by missing these key details. And when I left that job, they had to hire 3 people to replace me. Okay, so the reason for that was because of that list, the efficiencies of looking for problems before they become problems later on. Now you can correct the problem, and now you don't have an interruption that takes you even more time later on. So you can see what I'm explaining, it works. It's a matter of holding yourself accountable to it. And if you get accustomed enough where you don't need that list anymore in front of you, fine. But you definitely need something written down. You need some kind of a criteria in which you're going to work off of, because now you're not going to miss that detail. Now you're mentally not going to be wrapped up in what they're trying to sell you in the Telegram chat, the voice chats, the AMAs. You're not going to even listen to that. You're going to validate all of it against the very specific criteria. I'm not saying all these checkpoints will always be there. You won't always have a doxed team, nor does that mean that the team is scammers. Okay, it doesn't. It's just a matter of making sure that you feel like the majority of these boxes are checked and you feel like you're confident that you should invest in this. Like I said, it's a matter of finding the minimal investment versus the maximal investment, since most of them are going to be losers. Most projects are scams. So if you're investing in everything out there, your chance of getting scammed is in equal proportions to the amount of scams out in the market. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. I absolutely agree with you that especially if you are starting now, a list would help you a lot, and it can save you a lot of time and a lot of money,
Yep.
which is very, very important. So, Tony, I have dozens upon dozens of questions that I want to ask you, but I want to stick to my plan to keep the episodes short. So, do you have any final words that you want to share with our listeners, and also where people can find more about you?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. This has been a pleasure. And the last parting words I have is thank you for giving me the opportunity to share these insights. And hopefully I open some people's eyes up to some different details in which they can become better investors, while also sharing a lot about my mindset and how I approach the consulting world and how I approach the blockchain world as well. So I very much appreciate that. And people are able to find me on my website at moonboundconsulting.com. You can just Google that and it'll pop right up. My full name is Tony Drummond. I'm on LinkedIn as well. So you can find me there, Twitter, Hyper27374. Find me on Twitter and also Telegram. So if you want to send us a message. And like I said, our company works directly with startup founders in the blockchain space at the idea stage before they do the development and marketing. It's a great position to be in. If you're in that position and you have some investment capital to bring your idea to life and you want some guidance, that's exactly what we do. So it's been a pleasure to talk to the audience here. And hopefully all this information provided was helpful today. Thank you very much, Polar.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving all these precious gems. I'm sure that listeners will appreciate all of that, all the things that you have shared with us. So thank you very much again for being our guest. And yeah, thank you very much to all the listeners that have listened to this episode so far. So thank you very much. I'm Polar, the CMO of Seasonal Tokens, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye.
Yeah.